All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Kakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessing salutation to the hopeful they got there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful like the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al Shah. All right. And what I want to get into today, dealing with the book of Ecclesiastes. All right. Chapter 7. All right. Beginning in verse 3. All right. And when you go into the book of Ecclesiastes, okay, you can tell, these are the writings, of King Solomon, in his older age, as he has more experience with the wisdom, he was given, understanding that he became a ruler, all right, at a young age, all right, and as he has this, this wealth, this experience, this free time, he does a lot of, trial and error, he gets into some things, and he came to the conclusion, all right, there are a lot of things of this world, this age, is vanity, man. Okay. And what we realize, as sons of God, that this age, is preparing us, okay, for, all right, the rulership that's to come. Okay. When we're going to be changed, all right, to the immortals. Okay. And the thing about, these different ages we've been in, as sons of God, you know, it was refining us, okay, for the times that we're coming into now. All right. And Yahweh Shah, which was, King Solomon, if you can receive it. Well, Yahweh Shah was perfected. Okay. He was the first son of God to be perfected, and it was through suffering. Okay. So we have to understand, these current suffering, okay, is perfecting us, it's refining us, making us fit, all right, to be those joint heirs with Yahweh Shah. Okay. Matter of fact, let's get that in Hebrews and then we'll come back to Ecclesiastes chapter 7. This is the book of Hebrews chapter 2. Okay. It's the book of Hebrews chapter 2. All right. And verse 10. It says, "For it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, and bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation, which is Yahweh Shai, perfect through suffering." Okay? Perfect through suffering, man. So Yahweh Shai, when he was in Rome, okay, dealing with Jacob, dealing with, sellouts amongst his people, dealing, living in the society, ran by Edom, okay, anti-Messiah society, okay, a rebellious, society to righteousness, okay, and then ultimately he was, tormented and sacrificed for our sake, and all that was for his perfection, okay. It refined him, to make him complete as, for his office as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, okay. So we're, finishing out our course, all right, and we're being refined for our office with as joint heirs with the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. That's why there's so much emphasis. That's why the Lord brings us through intense situation. Things. We'll look at like, damn, this ain't fair. you know, it's it's always a target on us. Okay. We have to deal with the betrayals, the setbacks, the disappointments. Okay. And we have to deal with all these things. We have to exist in a society, okay, to where we don't have real power. We have to turn the cheek at a lot of things. You see? And it's all right, perfecting us, okay, for our office, under Yahweh Shai, okay, as joint heirs and as righteous judges of the earth. Okay? So you read this in the AMP. Hebrews 2 and 10 said, "For it was fitting for the Most High, that is, an act worthy of his divine nature, that he for whose sake are all things, and through whom are all things, and bringing many sons to glory, should make the author and founder of their salvation perfect through all right, suffering, bringing to maturity, all right, the human experience necessary for him to be perfectly equipped for his office as high priest. Read that again. It says, bringing to maturity, okay, because this suffering is maturing us, man. Because you become mature through experience. That's when you really become, as men, you become mature through experience, man, through trials, through overcoming. Okay, that's when you start to become mature. Okay, and it says, bringing to maturity, all right, the human experience necessary, all right, for him to be perfectly equipped. You see, so we go through sufferings to be perfectly equipped. You see, how Shah went to his suffering to be perfectly equipped to his office as high priest, man. Which he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and also a high priest. Okay, after the order of Melchizedek. So you go to the book of Sirach, not Sirach, Ecclesiastes. So like Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 3. Okay, it says sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness the countenance, all right, the countenance, by the sadness of the countenance, the heart is made better. So the Lord got us in these grave situations, as we're dealing with the bitter, okay, of this truth. You know, it starts off sweet, all right, because we're getting all this new information. We're increasing in wisdom, okay, but then we still have to deal in this captivity. And then we learning that we are pro Yahushua. This world is anti Yahushua. We still got to deal, you know, and it's a bitterness with this truth. The more we increase in wisdom, the more we increase in sorrow. Okay, and it reads in 2, it says, sorrow is better than laughter, for when a face is sad, deep in thought, the heart may be happy because it is growing in wisdom. So, the Lord has us growing in true wisdom by putting us in these circumstances of, suffering and sorrow, man. The fact that we don't have, the ability to change a lot of wrong that's in the earth, man, that's a bitterness, man. When you realize the circumstances that we're truly in. Because when we was in the dark, we thought that we was up. We was enjoying the convenience of society. Certain things we thought we was on something really ain't hitting on nothing. Okay, the life we live, we thought, that we, was on something. Okay, we didn't understand, that we were slaves, that we're slaves, man. We didn't understand that our enemy, all right, has full authority over us. We didn't understand how, the damage that's been done to us by the enemy. You look at our people and how they are, and then it constantly gets worse. Our people are getting worse, So the Lord has us in the spirit of being, serious minded, looking at the situation, and it creates a sorrow, man. It creates a level of sorrow. Like, damn. You look at Jake. You understand. What family supposed to be, and you see this setup. You see the dysfunction, man. And it comes with a bitterness, man. But in that bitterness, we're becoming wise. Okay, because we're constantly analyzing, how things should be, judging the matter according to the scriptures, man. So in this bitterness, we're becoming wise. Okay. And he said, the heart of the wise, this is Ecclesiastes 7:4, this is in the AMP. It said, the heart of the wise learns when it is in the house of mourning, but the hearts of fools is senseless, all right, in the house of pleasure. Yeah. And that's all we was doing, before the truth, man. It was all about chasing pleasure. Okay. We didn't know anything. All right. So chasing pleasure was a high priority. We didn't understand the circumstances we was in, the predicament we was in. Okay, as a people. Like I said, we didn't understand the damage that had been done to us as a people. Okay. So our mind was geared towards chasing pleasure. Okay, everything's a joke. You look at our people now, everything's a joke. They're getting worse and worse. They're getting more degenerate, more dysfunctional, more violent, and everything is a joke because the highlight of, okay, our people's life is chasing pleasure, clout, vainglory. You see, and it keeps them in the house of fools. Okay, but it says the heart of the wise learn when it's in the house of mourning. See, we're in a position to we understand this ain't a good case for us, man. You know, we understand we need a righteous reset as a people. Okay? So the things that, our people indulge in, man, we know, that look, that's, you know, folly, man. Okay? We don't have the time to be tapped into, folly. Okay? Or get lost. That's why, you know, as we truly tap into this wisdom, okay, as the Lord is, bringing us through, sufferings. Okay, the father of this world, and the coping measure, it's not a coping tool anymore. You know, these things, back in the world, we used to chase pleasure, to cope. Certain vices, you chase those things to cope. But as we come into the truth, man, that's not a coping anymore because we know what we can't unsee. The Lord has opened our eyes up. We can't unsee, because we see things for what they really are. See, the truth puts light on everything, and we see things for what they really are. Okay, so we can't unsee these things. So trying to use, the things of this world, the pleasure of this world, to cope with, all right, the bitterness of the truth. Well, nah, man. The only thing we can cope with is the comfort of man. Our peace comes in Yahweh Shai. Matter of fact, that's why, you go here. Yahweh Shai made the statement. This is the book of St. John, chapter 14, and verse 27. It says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid." Okay? So Yahweh Shai gives an inner peace that doesn't come from this world. Okay? Like I say, the quick pleasure, the fleeting pleasure of this world, all right, doesn't equal to the peace within from Yahweh Shai. And it comes from us being on our purpose. And that, we suffer, okay? But being on our purpose now, that levels us out. That gives us a peace in the midst of the suffering. That comforts us in the midst of, the suffering, man. Okay? Is the peace that's in Yahweh Shai, understanding what's to come. Prophecy is comfort, man. Okay? Knowing what's coming, knowing that this situation ain't forever, because you read Ecclesiastes, man, Solomon like, shit, this is pointless. Okay? Because he understood, that the death was inevitable. Okay? He understood these things, so he understood that, all men are just chasing vanity, and to really, enjoy, okay, righteousness and, the work of your hands, okay, and generation to come to enjoy, righteousness, you have to be immortal. That's a conclusion King Solomon, come to, because when he says all is vain, it's based on death. Okay, and the fact that we know that we're coming into immortality, man, that's a comfort in the midst of the bitterness, in the midst of the sorrow, and it's gonna be in righteousness, man. It's gonna be a reset, understanding. Like, you look at the current situation, and you look at these things, and you really understand the dysfunction and the damage done. Okay, and how jacked up of a situation we in. Okay, especially as a man, you understand these things, and the comfort comes knowing there's gonna be a righteous reset. We're gonna get new bodies. Okay, you see, we're gonna be in order. All right, the earth is gonna be renewed. All right, the earth is going to give you strength, and all these things give us comfort, man. That you won't get from vices of this world. Being popular doesn't fill that void, okay, of the situation we're in as a whole. Okay, how off things are. Okay, being popular don't fix that. A bunch of money don't fix that. Okay, at best, money keep you entertained for a while, but it don't fill that void. Doesn't give you that comfort and peace. Okay, the women, especially the women of this age, man, like you know, knowing what you know, you can't unsee, and it's like shit. It's a bitterness, man. Like, it's a bitterness, but that bitterness is needed. Okay, and it's going to create a appreciation for the righteous reset that the Lord got coming. You know, so going back to Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 4 said, "The heart of the wise learn when it's in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is senseless in the house of pleasure. It is better to listen to the rebuke of the wise man and pure wisdom than for one to listen to the song of fools and pursue stupidity, man." Okay, and this system has given our people a soundtrack of stupidity. You listen to the music, the movies, the entertainment. Okay, it's a soundtrack of stupidity. Okay, and as we come into the truth, we have to deal with the rebuke from Yahweh Bashim Shai. Whether it's through us, reading, and being confounded and cut. Watching the video, being confounded and cut. Having to be put in counsel, be put in check. Okay, but what is that doing? That's refining us. The Lord is fine tuning us for rulership. Okay, see, our people was taught to look at correction as a blow to your ego or somebody hating on you. Okay, which is, as it says, uh, pure stupidity, man. Okay, pure stupidity to think like that. You see, but that's the soundtrack. All right, that's been given to our people. Okay, is the songs. All right, of fools and pure stupidity. Okay, so that's why it's better to listen to the rebuke of the wise man than pursue wisdom. Okay, because it's elevating us. Okay, like I say, it's refining us for a higher office. There's nothing in this world that compares to what we got coming, and this wisdom, the rebuke, and the correction is preparing us for that. Okay, so when you keep reading, it says, verse 6 says, "For like, all right, the crackling of burning thorn bushes under a pot, so is the laughter of a fool, and this, all right, too is vanity. For oppression make a wise, all right, it says, surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart." So oppression, the scriptures say, maketh the wise man mad. Understanding the position that we're in, there's a frustration. There's a frustration that comes with it, man. You see, and on the flip side, it can make you mad. It can bug you out. This oppression can bug you out. Okay, and that's why we have to continue to pray for a strong mind. All right, a lot of our people have checked out. Under the yoke of this current captivity. They don't even want to know the serious matter. That's why they have resorted to escapism. A lot of our people, so they resorted to escapism in this current setup in this system. You see? But nah, man, just like Howard Shah, he rejected that myrrh and wine, that numbing agent, and he dealt with the suffering of the cross, man. He got the full brunt of it, man. You know, so we're dealing with the full brunt of this captivity, man. But see, we have, all right, a tool, a comforter to balance us out in this thing. See what drive Jake to be bugged out, okay? You know, to be in the defeat of the spirit of being defeated. And Jake don't have a comforter. Jake don't have that peace that's in your house shop. You know, we do. Okay? You know, and it's an appreciation for it. Okay? It says this the point. Verse 8 said, better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit, man. You know, so better is the end of a thing. The end, okay, of us is being perfected. You know, in the beginning, all right, even going back to the garden, the sons of God had to mature to this point that we are now. All right, to the time that we're at the door of perfection. We're at the end of being chastened. Okay? And we're being chastened for the better good of righteousness forever. You see? That's why when you go to Sirach 30, okay? Sirach 30 and 1, it says, he that loveth his son causes him oft to feel the rod, that he may have joy of him in the end. You see? So, you know, the captivities, you know, the chastisements, okay, the sufferings of this present life, it was all for the Lord to have joy for us in the end. All right, because Yahweh Shai, he was being perfected. The Heavenly Father, you know, would made the statement twice. This is my son in whom I am well pleased. Okay? And we're becoming those sons through suffering in whom the Lord is well pleased. Okay? The Heavenly Father is going to have a pleasure, okay, of placing the finished product, okay, of his sons in rulership. You know, there's going to be the pleasure of the Father to do that. Okay? So that was a point, you know, just wanted to get into that Lord will. You know, you brothers and you sisters edified. Till next time I say Shalom, Kwam Yashala, a Bible, soon, Shalom.